Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast, the film industry uncensored.
Welcome back, everyone, to season 2. As you know, we're going to have more guests, more stories, more insight. But to get you guys really started on board with my life and like what's been going on this year and what I'm focusing on is the documentary that I was starting to talk about a little bit last year. I want to give you guys a scoop to why I'm doing this documentary, why I chose this topic, where the spark came from, why not, a film that I wrote or something like that. Because as you guys know, I usually write my own stuff, and it's been a lot of drama, narrative type of short films type of things. I mean, I've done a lot of wardrobe these past couple months during COVID, so I just want to fill you guys in on how I got into this documentary. And, you know, it's a crazy story because initially the reason why I even got into this is because something really, really terrible happened in my life that really, really affected me. And it got to a point where I was like, do I use this to, sulk and sit around and, not get shit done and literally sit and waste away days when I know that it shouldn't have played out like that. Like, it would have been different if the situation didn't happen and involved another person, and I don't think that person would have wanted that for me as well. So I had a moment of clarity, I guess, where I was sitting and I realized, like, this is not the path that I want to take. This is not how I want to um you know go about my career. I feel like if I sit, and I just feel like time is money, right? So I feel like the more time I'm wasting sitting around, but don't get me wrong, it's been really hard and tough because I have days where I just want to sit around and not do anything, because this situation that happened to me was so affected me so much where I just felt like I couldn't like get past it in a sense. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, because like I said, everyone knows that I usually write and I make dramas. And if you haven't seen anything, you can go on my YouTube or my IMDb and check out stuff that I've worked on. But you probably know me for Mija. It's my most popular film that I wrote and directed. And I'm really proud about that film because it was one of those films where it was like, oh, all odds were against me in that moment when people were telling me not to write that kind of genre of film because it's, different, and I'm not intersex, so I shouldn't be writing stuff like that. But I'm happy I didn't listen, because now we're here. And we went to film festivals with that film, and it it received such good and positive vibes. And I think a lot of people, came to me and were like, hey, like, I didn't realize, this and that, or that this was something that was going on, or that. And it just really surprised me to see like how open and embracing everybody was once they like almost like learned a lesson through a film. Like, it was really cool. Like, I feel like when you learn something like in school, you're like, oh, I have to learn this in school. But like when you're watching it and it's like in a visual, creative way, you're like, okay, this isn't bad. Like, and then you retain something from it. So anyway, back to the documentary, how this crazy situation happened. Um, I really do love documentaries. I've gotten a recent love for them in the past like 3 to 5 years, maybe. Like, I've been like obsessed. Like, I just think they're so cool. It's almost, like, it's just fascinating to think like all these stories are real people from around the world, and you're learning about like just like things you would have maybe never like talked or seen, or saw a video of before, but now you have this opportunity because somebody traveled over there, or someone like studied this like, you know, little like village for a while, or like somebody went to find the Titanic. Like, there's just so many different types of things. There's also documentaries about animals, like drug cartels, like murder mysteries. Like, it really, really ranges. And I think during the pandemic, I grew even more fascinated with the idea of documentaries than before. So I spent a lot of my time watching documentaries. But for me personally, I started to kind of get an obsession with drug documentaries, like documentaries about drugs specifically, like and how much the drug epidemic has grown, and just like really, really random stuff about the epidemic, because there was so many and there are so many still coming out. And it's just really interesting because it's always such a dark story, which I get it. Like, you know, using drugs can lead to a really dark path. So, where I come in on this and fit in all of this, I guess, is I had a cousin who I was really, really, really close with. He was like my brother. We literally did everything together. We traveled. We grew up together. You know, he was 2 years older than me, so he always had that very like protective vibe over me, and we were just very close. So we kind of always had the dream of like moving to LA together and becoming roommates. And he would pursue like modeling and acting, and I would do the whole like filmmaking, directing stuff. And that was kind of like the plan. And I really like wanted that. I was like, that's gonna happen. Like I had it set in stone, like this is the plan. Unfortunately, things took a turn, and it wasn't the kind of turn that I expected, you know. I kind of want to make a very, very interesting point about how this all went down, because you know, when you're in high school and you're in college, everyone's partying, everyone's drinking. And when I say, okay, not I'm saying everyone, it is a lot to mix in. Like I don't want to mix everyone in, because that's not true. Not everyone drinks and not everyone has like done drugs. Um, but you are around that type of situation where it's almost like normalized, because like you see it in music videos, you see it in party films about high schoolers, you see it, um, you see it in private schools, you see it in public schools, like it's just around, and you see it, you know, like different businesses do it, like even in the movie Wolf of Wall Street, it's like you can see that these high up Wall Street guys are also, you know, doing drugs and partying and drinking. So it's almost like normalized. And then you got like these festivals, and then you got like house parties, raves, whatever, like all these different stuff that are going on. And it's like we're just in a generation of like, you know, drugs at parties or alcohol is cool. Like, and I was guilty of that too. Like when I was younger, not I don't want to say younger, when I was like beginning of end of high school, early like college, I thought it was really fun to like get a bottle over the weekend and drink and do all that. And you know, my cousin would come visit me, would go to parties, and I thought that was fun too. Like we would go to, you know, go out, go to different parties around the city, and we would drink a lot. And it started to change when, you know, he kind of mixed with like other types of friends that weren't necessarily the good classic high school friends that he had. You know, some of those high school friends took a turn into something more heavy, and he was very, you know, influenced by that, but also very like, hey, like if you could do it, I could do it, which I get that. It's a very like, you know, that was his personality, that was his ego, like that was his like style of partying too. Like he wasn't gonna let someone else show him up, which can get you in trouble too, right? So being around that type of energy, it was almost like, oh, like he's gonna be fine. He's like we're just partying, we're just having fun. But things started to change when I noticed that he started to do Xanax, which I didn't really know much about back then. Like I just knew that you could get it prescribed for your anxiety, and you can get it from your like therapist or doctor, and that's kind of what had happened with him. And I didn't see the harm in it at the time. I was like, okay, well if a doctor is prescribing it, if a psychiatrist or a therapist is describing it, it must be okay. But unfortunately we live unfortunately we live in a society where everything is overdone. It's like, "Oh, you have a mild headache, take these pills." Oh, you it's like everything is just so easy now. Like, "Oh, they just throw pills in your face." It's almost more of like selling it like it's a market. It's not really like for your health. Like not really they're not really worried about the side effects, like what could happen or like what is happening. So, it was just happening while I was in college. I'm still very clueless, unaware, like, and I don't want to blame it all on like, oh, you're just young because, like, obviously, like, you know what's going on, you know what you're doing. Like, I feel like you need to take responsibility on that, and I'm taking responsibility on that. I know when I was younger, I was just not thinking as serious as like I do now, and maybe my thinking has changed because of obviously the things that have happened since then. But I think, as long as you know and you can like take a step back and realize like, okay, this is not good, or this has gone too far, or this is not like a fun little like thing once at a party or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like I started to see like things were escalating for him. Like it wasn't like we were just doing this when on the weekend when he would come visit me, like we would like drink and smoke a little bit of weed and then maybe he would pop a Xanax and I was like, "Oh my god, that's hardcore." But I get it. He's like on vacation mode, like he's having fun. But I never realized that could form into an addiction. I never even realized like addiction could even be my family or it could even be like a thing that is so common. And like I don't even think that people really take a second to realize like how common it is. Like I bet like if you're listening right now, either you know someone or you're personally struggling through addiction yourself. And it might not be drug addiction, but it could be food, it could be your spending habits, it could be like sex, it could be anything, you know what I mean? We all have these different demons that we have to deal with or different struggles if it's not so intense for certain people. Um, and it's kind of just like you have your life to figure it out and kind of make the best of it and not let it make you a shitty person. Um, but anyway, back to where I was heading towards the documentary, getting all deep over here, sorry. um, so I basically started to realize things were getting worse. Every time he would come back to visit me, it almost seemed like he was getting more artsy crafty with like the type of drugs he was getting and doing, and I still was like a little bit intimidated by all that. So I was like, no, like I'm gonna stick to like, smoking and drinking, like what we've been doing, but if you want to do it, that's fine. And that kind of started happening for a little while, and I still at this point didn't see the problem. I still thought like he's in vacation mode, he's having fun, he's partying, he doesn't usually do this. Like he's in school, I'm in school, he came to visit me, he drove all the way. At this time I'm living in San Diego, by the way, and he was living in LA. Because he's 2 years older than me, so I was going to transfer from community college to film school. So like I said, I'm still on this path of like I'm going to go to film school. I'm going to become a film director. You do the modeling, you do the acting. And he was doing that. He was going to auditions and doing small little side roles. And it was cool. Like it seemed like we were on the path that we needed to be on. So now, it's time to go to film school, leave San Diego, be in LA with my cousin, have the best time, follow our fucking dreams, and do what we got to do. So at this point, I'm like so excited. I'm like letting him know, I'm like, hey, will you help me move? He's like, yeah, I will. Like he was super down and we scheduled a date and we planned to go. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. So we took the train to San Diego and we were going to take the U-Haul from San Diego to LA. And that whole train ride, things were a little bit different that day. Um, he kept blaming it on, he smoked too much weed and he was high and he was tired. But something was a little off. And he kept dozing off. And I thought that was really strange because I had never seen this type of behavior before. And he usually was very talkative and we'd have so much fun and like laugh and it'd be like the best time ever. Like I loved spending time with him. It was so much fun. Like it was a never boring, dull moment. So like it makes me so sad and it's crazy. Like, I feel like I'm talking about two different people because like the way I remember him is just like tied with so many fun memories. But unfortunately, these last like 2 years that had that he was doing drugs really had changed so much. And so basically, I noticed he was falling asleep a lot and I thought that was weird. I was like, why is he so tired? Like, we just got up, we had a good night's sleep. We didn't like, stay up late. I gave him the bed that day. Like, um, I gave him the room that day. And then I slept on the couch. So I realized now, I'm like, oh, he asked for the room that day. So maybe so he could maybe do drugs in the bathroom. It all like starts to fit in now, but I was just so clueless about it before. So we're in the train and it was weird because he was like dozing off a lot. And I was like, I'm gonna do my research. So I started researching and looking up like different drugs that make you basically doze off because I didn't understand what that could be. And all every time I was researching, it came up with like the same type of drug. And it was like, yeah, like it could be heroin, it could be, like if you notice like really small pupils, or if you notice like, falling asleep really sporadically, like out of nowhere, like that could be it. And I was really worried because I've never even, seen, heard, done, been around that kind of stuff. So to me, it was shocking. I was like, what? Like, how could he be around that? Who brought that around him? How did that happen? Um, and so my first initial feeling was like, oh, I'm angry. I'm pissed off. Like, this is too far. Cause like we had talked about like drugs and I told him, I was like, hey, like I'm cool with like what you're doing as long as you're like, what you're doing, you're being safe about it. But once it got to like the heavy stuff, that started to scare me. And I was like, I'm not cool with this anymore. So it started to kind of shift our relationship a little bit because, now I'm like not being the fun, like, oh yeah, do whatever you want. I'm being more like putting my foot down, like, hey, you can't do that. Um, so I was really upset about that. And I called him out. I was like, hey, I know you're doing these drugs. Like, you need to stop or I'm going to tell on you. Like, okay, that sounds like really immature, but I was like, I'm going to tell the family, I'm going to tell your parents if you don't, stop this right now because I'm going to start film school and I can't be like watching over you like that. Like, I'm going to be, in class, taking 7 classes a week. I could be at school. I was in school up to like 10 hours a day sometimes. So I was like, I can't have that responsibility of having this like big secret. So I was like, I need you to straighten up or I'm going to have to involve your parents. Obviously that didn't, like the beginning was like, yeah, I will straighten up. It'll all be fine. It will all be fine. But then it wasn't. So I did have to involve his parents and it kind of created this like weird blockage in our like shift in our relationship because he felt like, oh, you snitched on me. But it wasn't that I like snitched on him. I really was just trying to help him. And I feel like at that time he didn't see it like that, but I'm hoping, like when he had his mind, peace of mind and clarity, like during rehab and stuff like that, that he understood that it was just to help him. It ended up getting worse, you know. It turned into a 2-year drug problem, in and out of rehab. Um, I started seeing him less. He started showing up less to family parties, but it wasn't like something personal. It was because the drugs had taken over. And to fix it, he would have to go in and out of rehab. And, like, he would do well at some and then wouldn't, like, he would hold up, he would be doing well and then come out and have like a good like month, 2 month run. And then unfortunately would have a setback. And it was kind of like this toxic little cycle, which I see now, but I didn't see that back then. I kind of was just like, why are you in and out of rehab? Why can't you just like, chill and stop? Someone who's not addicted to drugs doesn't see or understand how difficult it could be for the person or can be for the person who is struggling. So at the time, I was just like, why are you doing drugs? Like, can you just like stop? Not realizing like it comes with so much more than, what I thought it was. Eventually, I got so sucked into school and I was really busy with the film school program. And, during that time, and he's in and out of rehabs, and I'm thinking like that's enough. Like that's enough to keep him like where he needs to be, and it's gonna be okay. Like I just was like, yeah, like eventually it will get better. Like it couldn't be worse than like what it is now, I guess. Like I just really didn't think that was I didn't think it could get worse than it ended up getting. So I was definitely blindsided. So one day after class, I got home and I got a phone call that he had overdosed on heroin, and it was the worst day of my life. Like, how could it not be? Someone that I spent all these years with growing up is now gone. Someone that I thought I was gonna, grow old together with, have like this whole future, and like we had plans for so many different things, travels, and now that it was all ripped away and gone. I didn't know how I could proceed and go about that. Like I was like, I had this whole plan with this person and now it's gone. Like, what? Like I was just like, and that fucked me up. Crying um, every day, it was just like tears were coming out, couldn't even control it. Um, I went full detective mode. I was going through his phone. I went full detective mode. I wanted to know what happened. Who sold him the drugs? Where did he get it from? Did he know this person? Was it a random person? Everything I needed to know, I tried to find the answer. So I was like, I'm not going to be okay with just knowing that he overdosed. I need to know what happened. So I took it upon myself to go through the phone, try to get as many answers that I could with what I had. And I don't know if it helped me or if it made it worse, honestly. Like I was like, oh, these people that I thought I could trust, and that, we hung out with, they ended up being part of the problem as well, or being part of the influence. And that was really like hard to see. This is like way bigger than I ever could have imagined. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into or what I had just been a part of. I didn't realize how much this situation was going to affect me and change my life the way that it did. I knew him passing was going to change my life. I knew things were never going to be the same again, because how could they? Like I know like what life was like with him. So never being able to say goodbye or being able to like have that last conversation, that's tough for me. I am confused at what is next, how to like continue. I wasn't feeling inspired. I wasn't feeling creative. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't see the point of doing it. I just was like, I want to cry and be sad all day. But I realized like that's not what he would have wanted from me. He would have been so upset if that's like, you know, the way I was like spending my time. Because I really went from just like doing shit, doing projects, working on stuff, having this drive, being inspired, to not wanting to do anything, wanting to sit on the couch, sulking, crying every day, honestly, playing a lot of Sims. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to be in a virtual world. I wanted to be somewhere other than this reality that I was facing with. And that's when I started to um, watch a lot of documentaries, and I started to get my obsession with really analyzing and watching drug documentaries. And they all had, a similar pattern of like, oh, Johnny is an addict. Johnny goes to rehab. Johnny's doing better. End of documentary, Johnny's relapse or Johnny died. It's like always like super pressing. And I was like, that is so sad. How does like a person who's like dealing with addiction, how could they be hopeful, positive about the future of them being able to like recover and do all this if like all the documentaries end so negative and they're all just so like, oh, this person's an addict, like they're probably a bad person. It's like, no, that's not true. Because what I've learned, any upbringing, it doesn't matter who you are, who raised you, how old you are, if you're rich, if you're poor, if your parents are divorced, if they've been married for 30 years, it doesn't matter. Um, if you have it in your genes, if it could be anyone, it doesn't matter where you came from. And I think that needs to be talked about more. There are so many different perspectives in this drug epidemic. And I feel like we're only always listening, hearing about the person recovering, person who ended up in jail or in this shitty situation because they did drugs, but nothing deeper or other like perspectives in the epidemic. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show that there is hope and you can recover. It might not be through your traditional rehab method or way, but at least there's hope that you can recover. So I, am still like obsessing over documentaries, watching them a ton, and I'm still like, I would love to shoot a documentary. I was like, that would be amazing. There's nothing more cool to me than shooting a documentary. I wasn't sure how, like, it goes. I've never done one, so I was like, I don't know how, you shoot this amazing documentary. I just know that, like, if you have a passion and you want to follow the topic and you have a camera crew. One of my, a friend of a friend, reached out to me and was like, hey, have you heard of this rehab? Heard of this rehab in Studio City? It's called the Heavenly Center. And I did not hear about this place before, but I was very curious because this person knew that I had lost my cousin to drug addiction. So they knew that this topic was very close to my heart. And, I'm still trying to like educate and learn so much more about it. So he was like, hey, check out this place. This is a different type of way of recovery. It's not like your traditional standard clinical way. It's a little bit more holistic, which I thought was really interesting because my cousin was he went to like the best of the best rehabs, very like, clinical style where, you give up your phone, you give up everything, and you have, visiting hours and stuff like that. So things were very different. And in this place, apparently you can smoke cannabis. It's assisted recovery, so it's like you can smoke at regulated times. You can't be hitting the bong whenever you want, going crazy. It's more like if you're feeling like you're going to have a setback or a relapse, you could, smoke and let it calm you down so you don't relapse. I honestly thought that was genius. And if that was going to help someone that to not have a setback, like let them smoke weed versus like, going back to cocaine or meth or heroin or fentanyl. To me, smoking cannabis made more sense. So, and also it's like if you're doing such heavy drugs, I think you almost have to like wean off of it slowly, I don't think you can just quit cold turkey like that. I feel like it's really hard to ask someone to do that. I think if you've never done drugs before or have never really tried to, you can maybe compare it to something you've been wanting to quit or do for so long. Like, for example, you're telling yourself, I'm finally going to work out. I'm going to stop eating chips. I'm going to stop eating chips, but you can't. You keep eating chips and you haven't gone to the gym. Like, that's a form of addiction too. You're just not facing it. So, if you can't even do something like that, like quit the bag of chips, how are you going to ask someone? How are you going to ask someone to quit hardcore drugs that has a drug addiction because it's an illness, and you're not supporting them? You're just, cutting them off, making them feel like they're a loser, they're like useless because they're like doing drugs. I feel like there has to be a line for there are going to be people who don't care and they want to just, do drugs and spend their life doing drugs and that's it. And then there's the people that go down this bad path that made a mistake but do want to go back and they need help and they get sucked into this vicious cycle. So my friend tells me about the rehab. I immediately check it out on Instagram. It has a pretty big Instagram following, 10,000 followers, more than what I have. And I saw that there were people tied into it that could have a big voice and influence on certain young individuals. And I reached out. I wrote an email to one of the general managers who's like seems to be like the face of the center, or one of the faces of the center, I should say. And I told him my story and why I was reaching out. And I told him, I was like, I'm not someone in recovery, but I am deeply affected by this situation. I lost someone to recovery and I needed help in a way that I can, which is in a creative way. And I was like, I really, really want to document your facility and show this like alternative way of recovery and like what you guys are doing there. And I want to learn too. And I want to see what it's all about. I was just like immediately hooked and obsessed. And he said, give me a call. So I gave him a call and we talked and he, gave me a chance. It sounds like you're passionate about what we're doing here. You understand what we're doing here. And, we do believe this is like the new and alternative way of healing. And we would love for you to come check it out. So I was super excited, and I immediately, scheduled to follow up and meet with them a week later. And I got like a walkthrough through the facility, and I just kind of saw everything with my own eyes. And I was really happy about what I saw and talked to the owners. We ended up discussing what I could shoot, what I could not shoot due to HIPAA laws, and obviously respecting the patient's privacy. And I really felt like things were, things can change. There's like a way things can change now. Maybe I can use the pain that I have and fuel some fire to do some good stuff with it, and make content that I'm passionate about, and that means a lot to me. I feel like um I needed to change things around, and I couldn't hold this, like, let this hold me tight, let me go after my dreams and what I need to do, because, time is valuable and time is ticking. And I don't want to, sit here and cry every day. I know that's not what my cousin would have wanted. And also, it wouldn't have been the right choice for me in succeeding and like going after what I needed to do. So, I was like, I need to straighten up. I need to get my shit together. So I was like, I'm going to do this documentary. I'm going to fucking do this documentary. I've never done a documentary, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try it. So I did my research on what I needed to do. It's a little bit different than, writing a script is different than documentary. Usually you have it in a feature film or a short film. You have the script before, and then you go shoot according to what you have. It's the opposite. You're like building your story off of the footage that you have. So I immediately, was like, okay, so things are gonna be different. But I actually thought it was almost like cooler, and it makes more sense. It makes sense to kind of shape the story off of what you got. But documentary is like very freestyle. Like, whatever you get that day, that's what you gotta work with. That's what you gotta make. People want to watch your stuff. It has to be worth, it has to be entertaining enough. It has to be good conversation. You have to get that lighting right. You have to make sure that things are just flowing smoothly. But I realized once they were like, we're on board, let's shoot this. I was like, okay, I need to bring someone on board that I trust. I'm going to keep it a small skeleton crew because I don't have all this money, because I don't have a lot of money right now to be paying all these people like, big bucks. So I reached out to Jose, Paige, and Devin, friends that I went to film school with, and I asked them, hey, can you help me? This topic means so much to me. This documentary would mean so much to me. And, I think all of us together, we know that when we work on stuff together, we're going to try to make it as best as we can, put our full force and effort into it, and, try to do as much as we can with it. So they were immediately on board. I was so happy that I had their support. And I just felt really lucky that I had people, or I felt really lucky that I had people that I trust that I could, reach out to and just embark on this journey with, because we had always like worked on short films or like other people's projects together, or like, just random more stuff that like we wrote. Not so serious. This was like real life, real stories, personal stories. And that's not something I wanted to mess up on. That was something we had to, execute and do it with respect. So I knew I could rely on them. And so when I reached out to them and they agreed, I was really happy. We've been shooting, I think we've already shot like 4 days for the documentary. We had some interviews with people we had some interviews with patients of the facility who are just starting the program, who are in the middle of the program, and who have graduated and what they're doing now. And it's really amazing to see all the different steps and how much they grow. Like when you give someone hope and that love and that encouragement and that support, they can do a lot. It kind of makes me see drug addiction differently too. Like it's not so negative and like depressing all the time. I'd associate it with like, oh, you overdose, oh, you die, because of my cousin. But I know now, like, it's possible to recover. It's possible to be able to get away from hard drugs. Because for a while there, I really thought like once you're in that situation, you can't get out. But that's not true. You can There's a way out. I have a couple more shoot days left. Obviously, the plan is to distribute it. My plan is to distribute this documentary because I want people from all over the world to really see what we're dealing with, what we're working with. It's not just going to be about this rehab facility. It's going to be about different perspectives in the drug epidemic, anywhere from someone who's actually going through addiction and then the people who are helping people with addiction. And we're going to see the different demographics of people. And it's not going to be your typical stereotype, but we're going to show what it really is, like what the demographics really are. My plan is to show the real streets in LA and then what it's really like when you drive. It's crazy that you go online and you just see like that fentanyl has killed more people than COVID and cancer. Like it just seems crazy because you always imagine like those are like the two worst things. And now it's like this little pill can just wipe so many people out in one batch. It wipes out so many people. So I really want to educate and teach the younger generation, like, this isn't something to fuck with. This is some serious shit. And it might seem cool because your favorite rappers like rapping about it, but it's not cool. It will escalate to more. And, you have to be self-aware. Like if you're going to be partying and doing these things, you need to know what you're surrounding yourself with and what's in the stuff that you're doing. Many people say weed is the gateway drug. I think alcohol is the gateway drug. Like it's used in celebratory manners. You always see it as like an encouragement. Like when you're out, we have to take a step back and think about what really is the gateway for certain people. And, could that be you in that situation? And if it is you in that situation, can you take the step at the path? Can you take the path towards recovery? And I want my documentary to end hopeful and not be like, Johnny had a setback. He didn't make it. Like, it's just like, no, we don't need more of that. We need, hey, this will help you make it. You are going to make it. We need more positivity and we need to be more educated and we need to be more involved because this is bigger than all of us. It's not just about you or the person that you know next door or someone you met. It's a community thing. It's greater than all of us. So I think if we all work together, we can hopefully reduce and change the drug epidemic that so many people have been victimized by. So yeah, I just wanted to fill you guys in a little bit on what I'm working on next. I know it's a little serious. It's not like these fun, random narrative stories, but I promise that we'll be back. I want to switch it up. I want to prove that I can do more as a director. I want to prove I can do documentaries. I can do documentaries and not just write narratives or short films. I believe that you shouldn't be limited to one genre. I think if you're passionate about something and you want to, go out and shoot it, you should shoot it. So, it was honestly nice just sitting here and filling everyone in. I hope everyone had a wonderful new year. I'm so excited to be back podcasting. I'm going to have more guests, more fun things to do. I'm not going to be sitting here by myself often. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode, and I'll see you guys next week.
Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. The film industry uncensored. This week's guest is